The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. I'm just going to give it a minute to make sure everybody gets logged on and settled, and we'll start the presentation in just a moment. Thank you. All right, let's go ahead and get started. We have quite a lot to cover today. So welcome again. This is What's New in Laserfiche. Thank you for joining me today. My name is Christine. I'm the marketing manager here at Accelerated. I am also joined today by Dylan, our DevOps 3 team member, who will be doing a demo at the end of the presentation. Before we get started, I just want to go over a few housekeeping items on how you can participate in today's event. We've taken a screenshot of the GoToWebinar attendee interface. We encourage all attendees to submit questions by typing them into the questions panel, which you can see here highlighted within the red rectangle. You can send your questions in at any time during the presentation. We will collect your questions and address them during the Q&A session. You may also use the chat panel to share your thoughts and comments as we make our way through today's presentation. All right, so let's take a look at the agenda. First, we'll get started with a look at the AIS Help Center. Then we'll check out some upcoming Laserfiche webinars and trainings. I'll also give you some information about the new Laserfiche Champion program. And then we'll dive into the main part of today's presentation, what's new in Laserfiche. We'll give a cloud recap for what's new in cloud, a sneak peek at what's to come in cloud. We'll also do a recap of what is new for self-hosted on-premises and a sneak peek at what's coming for that as well. And then we'll close it out with a demo by Dylan on some of the new features, and of course a Q&A. All right, so let's start with the Help Center and resources. Here you can see a screenshot of the Accelerated Help Center. This is a great place to go if you need to open a ticket with our support team, if you're already on the phone with our support team and want to open a remote connection, or you can also use our handy Laserfiche form here to replace or add a new user. There's also access to a bunch of Laserfiche and Accelerated resources, such as Laserfiche Answers, previous virtual user group recordings, and more. All right, and now let's check out some new things coming up on the Laserfiche side. Here are 2 Laserfiche webinars coming up in October. We have an introduction to document management features coming up on Tuesday, October 10th at 2 p.m. Eastern, and also an introduction to process automation features coming up on October 24th at 2 p.m. Eastern. There are also a few instructor-led trainings coming up for Laserfiche. We have the introduction to automation boot camp coming up next week, applying security in Laserfiche a little later in the month, and then on October 3rd, we have getting started with Laserfiche workflow. If you are interested in any more information on these trainings or webinars, please drop a question in the Q&A box and we can give you some more information. All right, so now let's take a look at the new Laserfiche Champion program. We're really excited to tell you a little more about this. The Laserfiche Champion program is designed for Laserfiche lovers who love to connect, share, and engage with the global Laserfiche community. As a member, you have opportunities to be featured in user groups, case studies, and more, plus have the chance to earn different prizes for swag along the way. Some of the benefits of the program that I just briefly went over, first of all, is of course Laserfiche swag. You'll be able to earn and redeem points for different swag options. Here are a few examples. There's a great Laserfiche messenger bag, a water bottle, a journal and pen set, and of course, one of the highly coveted Laserfiche pins that I know everybody is always very excited for. There's also access to an exclusive monthly Champions Lounge with fellow champions as well as the Laserfiche team. You'll have subscription to the quarterly champion newsletter with unique insights into product launches, events, and more. And even have the chance to gain entrance to Empower for next year. And here's a breakdown of some of the ways you can earn points in order to redeem for prizes. Here are a few options for 10 points, and just for clarification, these are all points that you earn by interacting with Laserfiche directly. These are not for, say, following us at Accelerated on social media. But a couple of options for 10 points. We have following Laserfiche on the various social media platforms, liking and sharing or reposting one of their social posts, signing up for Laserfiche Answers, and signing up for Laserfiche Aspire. If you decide to participate in a customer panel, that'll earn you 20 points. If you submit a Gartner Peer Insight review, a G2 customer review, or participate in a Laserfiche case study, that can earn you 50 points. If you submit a template for the new solution marketplace or agree to co-present at a virtual Laserfiche user group, that's 75 points. And for the nice big 100, if you are able to give a customer reference or co-present at an in-person Laserfiche user group, you'll be entitled to 100 points. And as you can see, it's really easy to start racking up those points and turning them in for swag. If you are interested in joining the Laserfiche Champion program, feel free to leave us a question in the Q&A box, or as you can see on the screen, there is a URL to complete a survey. Also, make sure you check out the handouts panel here on GoToWebinar to check out the Laserfiche Champion Program FAQ guide. Like I said, if you have any more questions, please let us know. Okay, so now let's get into the main part of our presentation today. What's new in cloud? So let's take a look at what's happened so far for cloud in 2023. Here's an initial big picture recap of the releases. There's been a lot of work within the Forms Layout Designer and business processes aimed at making it not only easier for those of you who are already process designers to build more quickly, but also for those of you who may have been too intimidated to try before, making automation much simpler. Zooming out a bit to process automation as a whole, we'll talk a bit about projects and how that allows you to apply regular security on various users within process automation, and how that also makes it a lot easier for more people to have access to building processes and process components. Taking an even bigger step back to the entire platform, we have some regional settings that were recently implemented in June that we'll take a look at. And then we'll take a look at integrating outside of Laserfiche with new integration platform as a service providers, which allows for easier integrations. Finally, we'll just take a look at some other miscellaneous but important improvements that were released for cloud. Moving into our first cloud topic, I want to talk a little bit more about the Forms Layout Designer. Let's start with a bit of a refresher on what it is, as many of you may still be using the previous Layout Designer, and there are more and more people switching to the new designer every day because of the great, exciting features. The new Layout Designer is a low-code or even no-code way of making fantastic-looking forms with little technical knowledge required. For example, in this slide, we see someone is trying to place multiple form fields on a single line. Instead of having to invoke a CSS class to have multiple fields on one line, with the new layout designer, you can simply drag and drop fields into the exact desired location and see it instantly. Laserfiche does intend to make this the main designer for people in forms, but the previous designer will still be available. You may have briefly heard about the new dynamic regular expressions builder, but let's get a refresher and look at some of the improvements that were released. Laserfiche is excited to be diving into the world of generative AI with this regex, or regular expression builder, that helps you make it easier for anyone to build, troubleshoot, or even validate their own regular expressions in forms. If you're new to regex, basically what you need to know is, let's say you wanted to put a phone number field on a form, but you wanted to make sure it kept only, you could only enter digits into that form. With the regex builder, it can tell you exactly how you can make that expression, or if you're more of an experienced user, you can also use the builder in particularly complex situations. In this example, there's a particularly long expression that I would personally rather not have to build myself. So using AI, I can have the regex builder do it for me. I can also use the builder to validate and troubleshoot any user-created expressions that may not be working properly. There are also a number of other enhancements to the layout designer that can help you work faster with more out-of-the-box support for things that would have been previously done in JavaScript. There are more improvements to the performance and visibility of tables and collections with pagination and search, ability to support multiple action buttons, and more things around dynamic field rules. We touched on how the new Forms layout designer, in the new Forms layout designer, you can see changes made visually to the form in real time, but that also does go for the right panel. So in this case, you brought in a number field, and for whatever reason, it's showing words in the default value. Obviously, it's a number field, so we shouldn't be accepting words. Previously, you would have to wait until you're actually previewing the form to see this error. Now, you have insight sooner for immediate validation, so you can fix it right away and then don't have to backtrack to fix a simple error. The goal of this is to help you validate as you go, rather than having to troubleshoot later in the process. Speaking of working with validation, Laserfiche has added a number of methods to the LF Forms object. So if you're a bit more technical, I recommend checking out how those options can help you build better in Forms. There are also new options that are going to help you get really creative with your forms in the layout designer. With more and more people using forms on their phones, I'm also really excited to share that there are new improvements to give users better responsiveness when using your forms in mobile. This can help save a ton of time previously spent adding functionality with CSS, and again is in an effort to provide more of the most used CSS features directly out of the box. Another popular example is when you have a signature block. In the new designer, you can easily specify if you would like a typed or handwritten signature, depending on what you require. Another exciting update I want to touch on is enhanced previewing in forms. Now you can see exactly what the submitter will see at every step of the design process. This is particularly useful for complex processes and can ensure less errors and time wasted previously spent fixing forms. Now let's zoom out a little bit more to a wider shot of business processes in general. There are a bunch of new features in business processes. One highly requested feature I want to highlight is you can now customize the form's email display name. So instead of everything coming in from forms notification, you can now customize the sender name to have it come from your organization, department, or really any name you choose. This will help people better know who the email is coming from, especially if it's a user in or outside your organization that doesn't use Laserfiche regularly and may not be familiar with Laserfiche notifications. Another feature to highlight is you can now route forms based on custom actions making it easier to make your processes exactly what you need it to be. The final feature I want to highlight here is you can now store action history and even include that status in email notifications. Jumping ahead now to business processes. Now that your business process is built, maybe you had something go wrong. No matter how much you prepare your process, you may run into issues that need to be troubleshooted after the process has been implemented. Luckily, recently released features added a number of enhancements aimed at simplifying troubleshooting. For example, if there's an issue with a user task, those can now be restarted. Previously, there was only a retry for service tasks button, but now you can restart a user task as well. There are also options for fixing issues on multiple pages that make that a bit more accessible. Also, you can now upload a new file to a process if the original file is not what you needed. All of these features are in an effort to help with not just building processes, but also simplifying troubleshooting for more intuitive experiences. Moving on to our next cloud topic, let's talk a little more about process automation in general, specifically using projects to apply granular security. So these projects in process automation contain a bunch of different parts. So say maybe the marketing has their own projects. All of their projects can be owned and managed by the marketing team without help from another department. These processes help you collect the various things you will need with all of the rules, business processes, forms, and such that are associated with the project. Previously, everything was global with everything shared, but now with projects, you can migrate a bunch into specific projects with one button. You can easily migrate forms and business processes from global to individual, from individual projects to global, or even between individual projects. These projects ensure correct users have access to view and edit these processes, making them even more secure. Another way these projects become more useful is with the release of the team developer role. This allows you to isolate rights and empower individuals to build what they need by themselves. For example, maybe somebody wants to build a customer sign-up form. You don't need to give them access to all of process automation. You can instead give them access to build processes just within their specific project. Or maybe somebody is coming in from a different team to help build a process. That person can be assigned just the team developer rights without needing access to the whole backend, helping isolate rights to exactly what person needs which rights. Zooming out a bit again to the entire platform, let's talk a little bit about regional settings. These were just released in June, and we've already seen people adopting this feature, including myself. I've changed my own personal settings. The three aspects are time zone, locale, and language. Time zone settings can help you define how processes move across the platform. Setting your locale allows you to see dates and numbers formatted the way you're used to seeing them. And there's also a number of languages already supported in the repository, but in particular, there is now support for Canadian French and Latin American Spanish. Here we're looking at a user setting up their personal preferences, but for any of our administrators out there, you can also manage these settings globally. And of course, the user can still then set their personal preferences. The next feature I want to highlight that we've all here at AIS been very excited for lately is iPaaS, or Integration Platform as a Service. Laserfiche is excited to announce they're partnering with two iPaaS providers. And like I said, iPaaS stands for Integration Platform as a Service. And those two providers are Boomi and MuleSoft. This will help promote more connected experiences and increase data integrity by making sure your data stays correct across multiple platforms. As a reminder, we're happy to announce that in an effort to help you continuously improve and expand how you accelerate your business, Accelerated Information Systems is now a Boomi partner. Boomi is the leading iPaaS provider and enables you to integrate various applications, data sources, and systems for both on-premises and cloud systems, enabling you to streamline operations and drive business growth. We're touching on this feature here during the cloud portion of today's presentation, but keep in mind this feature is also available for self-hosted, and we will touch on that in a few minutes. Having an integrated experience means you're truly maximizing your most valuable asset, which is data. With a complete view of your clean, secure, and trustworthy data across every available source, you have a fabric of connectivity that powers and empowers your ecosystem. So what does this mean for you? As a Boomi partner, we here at Accelerated can help you integrate your systems and applications, including Laserfiche, in a way that most other partners cannot, so that data can automatically pass between them. This can help you streamline information, reduce manual work, and ensure data integrity. Like I said, remember that this feature, Boomi and iPaaS, is also available for on-prem systems as well, and we will touch on that a little bit later. There are also a handful of miscellaneous new options for cloud that I want to share that didn't quite fit into the other categories, but are still very exciting. Laserfiche has expanded some of the limits on direct share. Depending on what tier you're on, there are different options now for increased file sharing size, as well as the maximum expiration date you can set on a share. As a reminder, direct share allows you to securely share files from your repository with outside users, and set security options like an expiration date, password protection, and more. Smart invoice capture, for those of you who may not be familiar, uses AI to enhance your accounts payable process by automatically identifying a number of fields on an invoice. Laserfiche is now expanded to allow 4 additional fields to Smart Invoice Capture, which can open up even more possibilities for invoice processing. There are a number of cloud developer updates that I'm not going to go into all of them, but I do recommend checking out the Developer Resource Center if you haven't already. The URL is right at the bottom of the page. There are a lot of improvements to the Laserfiche API, but I specifically wanted to call out how it works with third-party apps, specifically around the authentication, which can be a hard thing to build yourself. With OAuth connection, it's easier than ever to connect with third-party applications. Another exciting releases that are coming are to import agent and email archiving. There are a number of enhancements here, including more token support, email tokens, PDF cross-page generation. There are a bunch of improvements there. And just as a refresher, Import Agent allows you to easily get Windows files automatically into your Laserfiche repository. And Email Archive does the same thing with pulling emails into your Laserfiche repository, which can be very easy, very helpful. All right, so now that we looked a little bit at what's already out in cloud, let's take a look at what's coming to cloud. In the near term, meaning the rest of the year and possibly into the beginning of next year, there are a number of designer and automation features on the cloud roadmap. One exciting update is the expansion of the number of lines in a lookup table, in addition to the potential number of lookup tables. Not only will limits be increasing, but you'll also be able to add them to process automation APIs as well as rules. I mentioned earlier, project security enhancements have been an ongoing initiative for the past few years or so, and I'm excited to announce Laserfiche will be adding workflow to project security. This will give process designers more granular control over who can access which workflow. There will also be a number of additional layout designer enhancements to help you with building your forms. As I mentioned earlier, the regular expression builder is Laserfiche's first foray into generative AI, but there's still so much more potential for innovation. Laserfiche is looking into ways that generative AI can help you design more productively, plus help end users use Laserfiche more productively. So keep an eye out for that soon. There are also some exciting new document and records management features on the cloud roadmap. Of course, that increased limit for lookup tables also applies here, but there's also some increased limits for data storage. Another exciting roadmap feature is MFA support for direct share. As a reminder, MFA stands for multi-factor authentication, and that is that two-step security feature that you may have used with some other platforms in the past. It's when you may have needed to input a code that was either emailed or texted to you to authenticate an account beyond just a standard password to prove that's you. That's exactly what MFA is. Laserfiche is also working on new information security audit certification to help further ensure Laserfiche's security. And finally, to wrap up cloud, here's a high-level view into some of the longer-term initiatives Laserfiche is working towards. As you can see, Laserfiche has been focused on a lot of the fundamental features with OAuth and APIs. One of the next focuses is full end-to-end solutions and integrations and how you can implement those. Then eventually the focus will move on to longer term goals like data pipelines and overall ways to get you the best, most cutting edge software. All right, now let's move on to on-prem, and we'll get started with what's new already released for on-prem self-hosted. We'll get started by taking a look at the on-prem roadmap. I want to start off by giving an overview of some of Laserfiche's self-hosted goals. A major focus is on content-centric process automation and supporting modern compliance needs. So whether that's authentication or advanced records management, there are several categories where Laserfiche is focusing on, a lot of which reflect on what we just discussed in cloud, but some of them are unique to self-hosted, such as deployment simplification. We'll go through each of these themes, and I'm going to give you a few examples as well. Before I do that, though, I do want to talk a little bit about Laserfiche 12. If you attended Empower earlier this year, you got a little bit of a sneak peek into what's planned for Laserfiche 12, with more information being released as we get closer to it next year. The idea of Laserfiche 12 is not taking a single step from Laserfiche 11 to Laserfiche 12, where suddenly everything is different. Instead, Laserfiche is looking at a variety of things that they've heard from clients like you. This includes things like deployment simplification, focusing on the fact that systems are now getting larger and larger these days, ensuring that you can use your whatever identity management tools are best suited for your organization, and overall quality of life enhancements, whether you're a process designer, integrator, or everyday user. This is going to be a series of updates throughout the rest of this year and next year, leading to the release of Laserfiche 12. Process design is a key component of Laserfiche, and some areas that Laserfiche is focusing on include making sure you can work more easily with documents within your process. So going back to that content-centric focus. This includes things like global profiles for working in your form and saving to the repository. It also includes variables coming back from those activities so you can interact with those documents more easily in future steps, have more universal metadata settings, and more. It includes improvements to debugging and troubleshooting that are handling for errors and more options for dealing with instances that are already in flight that may have run into an issue. When it comes to deployment simplification, Laserfiche is making it easier to access the installer to make sure you get the updates that you need. They're also looking at increasing user education resources, making it easier to set up single sign-on, making it easier to renew your licenses, and making it easier to set up things like your forms into external situations. Next, Laserfiche is also doing some improvements to the data management tools, such as Direct Share, giving more options when it comes to what's available in Direct Share, additional options such as auto-generation of passwords and one-time passwords, and the ability to automate the direct share process. Enterprise identity management is one of Laserfiche's security focuses. So this is making it easier to manage your users in groups if you're using Azure AD or Okta. This includes updating the biometric system to support more login options depending on your system, such as Touch ID, Face ID, fingerprint, and improving the administrator experiences when you're working with users. Under the same security and compliance umbrella, Laserfiche is also looking at unified auditing. Laserfiche has added forms to auditing reports. In the future, they'll be moving directory server from an application-specific reporter to the unified auditing reporter. This is really critical for addressing questions such as who performed an action, who viewed something, who deleted something, who accessed potentially confidential data, and also things like who may be able to do any of these things. I promised we'd be getting back to iPaaS. So like I said, we talked a little bit about iPaaS earlier in the presentation section around cloud, but there are also some exciting features I want to highlight and remind you are for self-hosted as well. So iPaaS works similarly in both cloud and on-prem, but as a refresher from earlier, iPaaS again stands for Integration Platform as a Service and allows you to integrate Laserfiche within the rest of your application ecosystem. There are countless connectors from hundreds of vendors, including Salesforce, Workday, Illusion, and more, to give you more streamlined, consistent data and a more connected experience while giving you much faster return on your investment than if you had waited to build those connectors on your own. Once again, I just want to highlight that Accelerated is proud to be a Boomi partner, meaning we can help improve not only how you use Laserfiche, but how you use all of your applications, and importantly, how you use them with Laserfiche. If you have questions on whether Boomi might be right for you, or just Boomi questions in general, please make sure you drop a comment or question in the Q&A box, and we will address it at the end of this presentation or reach out to you after today's virtual user group. All right, now let's check out a sneak peek of some of the new features that are coming to self-hosted soon. These are all forms-related items, which is one of Laserfiche's top areas of focus, as it is one of the key products of Laserfiche. One of the things making it easier to configure forms for external use, and that's one of the focuses. So currently, this is done through a white paper to make sure that you have it set up using single sign-on, etc. Laserfiche is now looking to replace this cumbersome process instead with this simple tool. There are also more options coming for managing forms that are already in process, including the ability to make some more complex variables, to update some more complex variables like a table. So if someone's misentered data in a table, instead of having to route it back to the user, the form, you can now just manually update the table, even if it's already in process. The final feature I want to walk through and have a little bit more of an in-depth sneak peek into is in terms of some of the upcoming UI updates in the central repository. Specifically, there are two main scenarios, which oftentimes people find that they can be in both scenarios. Where one of the scenarios where they have forms designers who don't have access to the service user credentials, and IT doesn't really want to distribute those passwords. Or another scenario where someone who does have access to the credentials, but may have had to change a password due to a password rotation mandate, and they don't want to have to go through all the individual processes to update. So what Laserfiche is doing is adding a forms server level concept of a repository connection profile. So it'll be one place where you can add, view, and edit the repository profiles as a system admin or a higher level administrator. And then you can grant use of those profiles to process designers who can add those into their processes. And it will be automatically updated in the process when the admin updates the information. All right, so let's just take a quick sneak peek at some of the UI. This is what it looks like in the list, where we have these 3 different profiles, which you can see have different levels of securities and are connected to different repositories or servers. This is in the Forms Administrator section of the Forms configuration site rather than in the standard Process Designer area, just as an FYI. When you're in the process, here I have a fairly complex process that has multiple save to repository tasks. You can currently select from your existing repository profiles, and that isn't being taken away all in one go, so there will be a smooth transition. You can also select from these global system repositories, which makes it a lot easier to update them. And this will be part of the import process too, so it will make it not as bad to replace all the profiles when you're going through and adding the system profiles. All right, so we went over a lot of information. I'm going to pass things over to Dylan so we can see some of them in action. Dylan, should be passed over to you.
Thank you. Before I get into it, there is a question, which is, I didn't catch what the enhancements are to email archiving. Please go over this again. Christine, do you want to quickly pull that slide back up so that we can show that again?
Yes, 1 second. Okay, hold on. Okay, so this was the slide. So the email archive updates include token support for attachment names. You can temporarily disable email archive profiles during profile development. And you can also exclude subfolders if that's relevant to you. And if you have any more, yeah. Oh, go ahead, Dylan.
I was going to just add some details on why this is useful. Obviously, having token support for attachment names is really nice. Sometimes the things that you want to archive with Email Archiver isn't the email itself, but instead the data that is attached to that email. This allows us to do things like route it, that attachment, depending on its name. This means people can format these attachments with specific names and things like that. Previously, we had to do that through the subject of the email. Also, excluding subfolders can be really nice. If you want certain things in only some folders of your email to come into Laserfiche, we can do that now instead of just grabbing all of it. Those are the 2 main ones. Obviously, temporarily disabling it is great for development because you don't accidentally have this running. This is great for iterative improvements to the process in production. We can do that and make edits live without actually needing to turn everything off for a period of time.
Great. Okay, yeah. And if you have any more specific questions, we can definitely address those as well. But I'm going to throw it back to Dylan for the demo. Thanks, Dylan.
So we should be able to see my screen now. Yes. I am going to just highlight a couple of the things that we talked about, show where that is in the system. The first thing I wanted to mention is something that we've been asked for a while, which is being able to set the system-wide time zone. So you can now go into settings in your account management, go to your regional settings at the top, and you can customize this. This applies for all users logging in going forward. This sets it for everyone. Now, this is great, and it sets it as a new default. So when you create a new user, they'll be set like this automatically. If you want, you can also go to your users, find the particular user in question, and you can go down and set their time zone here as well. You can also set their language and regional format here as well. So if you have 1 or 2 people who are on a different time zone or a different area or speak a different language, that's okay. We can support that now in cloud. previously they had to just adapt and use whatever it is you were doing, or the first time they log in, they are given options to change that, but if they weren't paying as much attention the first time they connected, it was difficult to change it after that. You can also click on your name in the upper right-hand corner and go to My Account, and you should be able to change it here as well. So there are a couple of different places that if you want to go changing your time zone, your language, anything like that, you can do that. End users, yet again, click on their name, go to My Account. Admins, we can do it straight from their user account settings in the Accounts tab. Now, for some of the forms-based improvements, I just want to highlight really quick that you can still use the old designer if you want. We are recommending that going forward, if you're developing a new form, to try to use the new designer. It really does have a lot of new features that make it a lot easier to use, and it means that you have to use way less custom CSS and JavaScript going forward in your development. So when you go to create a new form like this, you'll notice this menu pop up for you. So here you can easily pick to use the forms designer or the legacy forms designer. Yet again, you can compare the features, but overall, the classic forms designer is just going to have less features going forward than the new forms designer. If you do have things in the classic forms designer, there is an option in the upper right of that form to convert it to a new form designer. So I'm just going to call this my VUG form here. We're going to open it up, and you're going to see a couple of the major differences. Now, some of you may be newer users, so this is your first time seeing forms. If so, that's great, because this is so much easier to use than it used to be. For instance, if you want to change the form title, you can just click somewhere on the form. You can change the form title here. And if you need to add fields to the form, no longer do you have to add fields only top to bottom like you used to. You can now add fields on the same line as well without needing custom CSS or JavaScript to do so. This obviously can make it a lot easier to develop these forms very quickly. You can go and just drag things in directly. You can also now do things like search through your radio button choices, and you can see I can import my choices with either a CSV or TXT file. This is really great if you have an initial upload. You want to do that as a massive number of choices. Previously, as you can see, these aren't like a copy pastable list. I would have to do it one at a time. Now we can do it as this big bulk option with a CSV or a text file. You can also export them as a CSV file. This is great if you need to then add them to another database somewhere else, or if you want to add them as a Laserfiche database for reference elsewhere, you can do that as well. For instance, this is great if you have a radio button, drop down, whatever, already set up, already working, and you've decided you want to move that to a database somewhere. You can export it now. You don't have to just retype everything or try to do some sort of copy paste while the form is live. Overall, I find those are less consistent than just being able to export it here. Similarly, upload files now have a couple of additional options. The main one is right here with preview options. If you select this, you can have a thumbnail preview. I personally leave it as small. I don't recommend increasing it. You can also go to custom if you want to make it even smaller than that. I find small works really, really well. And you'll be able to actually view those uploads in the process. I'll show that in a minute. Before I leave the designer, I just want to showcase one more thing, which is the regular expressions. So if I go to this single line field, let's say I want this to be someone's social security number. Well, figuring out the exact format for a social security number can be relatively difficult for a regular expression. You're of course welcome to try and input it yourself. You can also click on this little question mark here in order to be able to write the regular expression. So I'm going to say a US social security number, and then I'm going to ask it to write the expression. Now it does take, give or take, 15 to 30 seconds for it to analyze what you've typed, figure out what it should be looking for, generate the regular expression, and then present it to you. But it does end up doing a very, very good job. This will also include variations, like if you want to be able to have no dashes or dashes included, it includes all of those things for you. So you can see right here, this is the regular expression is generated. While it is possible for a person to come up with this, it obviously takes a lot longer than 15 to 30 seconds. It also does a really good job of explaining throughout the whole thing what each step does. So if you realize that you either made a mistake or you needed to make a slight edit to it because of the way you wanted it formatted, you can know exactly where to make it because it breaks down everything for you in this nice explanation. and it breaks it all down in relatively easy to understand English, none of that complex developer mumbo jumbo that you may sometimes get from things like this. This also explains what it tried to analyze as a US social security number, and it mentions what the format is expected to be. So if it got that wrong, you can always try tweaking it, just like any AI related input nowadays. Sometimes you need to tweak your inputs to get the outputs you wanted. If you're not managing to get exactly what you want out of this, or if it's too complicated or you're having trouble, feel free to let us know. We're happy to help. Now I'm going to save this form so that we can see what this actually looks like in a process here. I will need to add this form because I just made this form to my processes. So give me just a moment to go in here and add in my form and make the change. Now, when I go in here and I start this process off, you'll see I can enter some info. Yet again, it's going to yell at me when the Social Security number is in the incorrect format. But once I format it correctly, it will let me know that everything is good. This may be one of these things where you may want to add in a custom error message, because when using this regular expression, most end users aren't going to understand this. If you're interested in custom error messages or anything like that, let us know. We're happy to show you how to use those. As far as file uploads go, you can choose your file, you can add it just like previous, but now you get this really nice little preview of what it looks like down here. And you can, of course, click this I symbol there to be able to open it up and more detail and be able to actually read it more easily. You can, of course, increase the size of the preview. Keep in mind, this was the smallest size available. If you want a larger preview, you can do that. They can get really, really big. They can cover up the entire page. So if you just want it to look like it appends to the page, you can do that very, very easily. Upon submission, you'll notice that if you go to the next stage of the process, which I will open up in my tasks, it will also be available there. So any further review tasks or anything like that that you're able to go in here and take a look at, it will show yet again as this nice preview. This means you don't need to use custom iframes or JavaScript anymore to get attachments to show up in your forms as something easily visible to your end users. So this can be really helpful to you. Of course, you can save this as a separate form when you go to actually save the document. When you do save the document, it won't append it. It will save separately as 2 separate documents. If you're interested in doing any of the appending stuff or anything like that, let us know. We're happy to hop in, show you how to do that. The last thing I really wanted to show today is I'm going to go into the monitoring side of things, and I'm going to show you some of those new reset features. So as mentioned previously, if you had a completed process or a terminated process or canceled process, you were out of luck. Our best course of action was to tell you you're going to have to restart the whole process from scratch. We don't have to do that anymore. So I can take some of these older processes and I can open them up. You can see the full detail that the process, and this is a new account opening process, but we can see that this process completed just fine. But if we realize later, hey, we need to restart this, it's going to be all the same information, but some of our review steps may be changed or some of the information needs to be updated. I can go in here and I can right click on one of these and I can say restart. And this will restart the process from this branch. And it gives me a little bit of a warning about exactly what's going to happen here. This is also letting me know that this instance may have been an older version. This is going to use whatever the latest published version is as of today. This means if you made changes to fix something and you didn't realize that it was causing an issue like terminating a process or something like that, you can now come in here, restart it, and it'll automatically use the latest version to avoid that termination in the future. You can add any comments you want, but I'm just going to hit restart. It lets me know that it's restarting. And then I can refresh the page just so we can see it here. And if I scroll all the way down to the bottom, it's going to let me know, hey, this just restarted, who it was restarted by, and all of that information. And then if I go to my tasks, you will see my task was just refreshed here. I can open it up and all of the existing information that was previously input into this, including attachments and things like that, will be available here. So If you need to restart processes, that is now an option with Laserfiche Cloud. We don't just need it to be on running processes. As mentioned, it can be on canceled ones as well. You can also use this to create additional branches, being wary that restarting the process does not cancel any part of it that is currently running. So if you have tasks that are currently in process way down the line in the process, do end those separately in addition to restarting the process. But that level of granularity can be really helpful because it gives you the option on whether you want to reset it or not. There are some additional other admin features, as Christine mentioned. I'm not going to go through all of them. I want to be respectful of everyone's time on the video. If you have any questions about any of the improvements that Laserfiche is adding, feel free to let us know. If there's something you'd like to see as well, something that we haven't gotten to today and or that Laserfiche doesn't have yet, please let us know. We love to make the suggestions to continue to make Laserfiche better. That's all I have for you today. If anyone has any questions, we are happy to stick around for a little bit.
Yeah, thank you, Dylan. I'm going to share my screen. Before we get into questions, I just want to remind everybody that there are a few resources in the handout panel. We have the frequently asked questions for the Laserfiche Champion program and also a copy of today's slides. You will also receive a copy of the recording from today's presentation tomorrow, so keep an eye out on that and feel free to share it with your coworkers. And now, if you have any questions, like Dylan said, please feel free to submit them in the Q&A box. We're happy to hang out for a little bit and see if anybody has any questions. If you don't have any questions and you're leaving us at this point, we really appreciate your time today. Thank you for joining us and checking out what's new. And we encourage you to complete the survey before you go. And thanks again. But yeah, if anybody has questions, please feel free to submit those now. I'm not seeing any questions as of yet, but if anybody does have any questions, this is last call. Feel free to put it in the Q&A box. Or, of course, you can also reach out to us at any time, and we'd be happy to answer any questions about anything we went over today, including Boomi, the Laserfiche Champion program, and anything just new in Laserfiche. But yeah, like I said, please make sure you take our survey after you close out of the webinar today. And thank you so much for everybody who joined us. And we look forward to seeing you again next month. Thanks, everyone.